Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the NFL Draft Triple Take presented by UPMC. Mike Prisuta, along with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson. We are deep into round two of our position-by-position previews as we ready you for the first round of the NFL Draft on April the 29th. We're going to take a look at the running back position, a second look at the running back position in this segment before we tuck the ball and make our one cut and head upfield. I want to remind everyone that all of these videos are shared on Steelers.com, the Steelers mobile app, and the Steelers official YouTube page. The audio can be heard on the Triple Take podcast and on Steelers Nation Radio. And you can subscribe to the Triple Take podcast wherever you download your favorite on-demand audio content. Running back, still another position that intrigues, if not fascinates. There are some high-caliber, top of the position type of guys that can really get your attention and, star caliber talent. But as we all know, and as we've heard Mike Tomlin say a million times, running backs come in all shapes and sizes and from everywhere. And just to emphasize that point, Dale, last season, 2020, National Football League, of the top 7 rushers, none of them were first-round draft picks. You had Derrick Henry, second round. Delvin Cook, second round. Jonathan Taylor, second round. Aaron Jones, fifth round. David Montgomery, fifth round. Robinson from Jacksonville, free agent. And Nick Chubb from Cleveland, second round. You can get him in the first round, but do you need to?
Well, here's the thing. All those guys you mentioned, with the exception of the guys who were taken outside of the second round, the guys who were taken in the second round were taken in the top half of the second round. Chubb, for example, was the 35th pick in the draft. So if you're a team from the middle on down, especially in this year's draft, I think from the middle of the second round down, there are 3 guys, we talked about this before, that are atop the board. And I think they all go somewhere between 18 and 35. I think that's really the sweet spot for those guys. And then after that, there's a bit of a drop off between number 3 back and the number 4 back. Doesn't mean that some of those guys won't hit, and we'll talk about some of these guys. But I know that those top 3 guys are probably going to hit. I know that they look like, every down backs in the NFL. So every draft is different. I know people want to say, well, you never draft a running back in the first round. Yeah, I get that in a lot of years, and that sounds great, except if you don't have one. If you don't have one, you better get one.
Matt, you see that sweet spot about where Dale lined it up? I know I've done my mock draft for Steelers.com. I got them going somewhere from 33 after. No first round on my list.
I understand the argument of you don't want to take a back super high. And Mike, to your point too, of the leading rushers last year, some of the early picks like McCaffrey and Barkley, they were just injured. They probably would have been in the group as well. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott missed some time. I mean, those guys are early picks.
What? They were injured and they weren't there.
Yeah, 100% true. I mean, it is an injury-prone position. Those guys take a beating, and that's part of the argument of not using an early pick there. But in this class specifically, I just think the 3 guys stand alone, and the guys behind them aren't as strong as they usually are. Last year I loved the day 2 backs that went, and even the first one was 32nd overall. Where in this class you might see those first 3 go, and then the other ones are spot players. I mean, like a Kenneth Gainwell to me is a really attractive player from Memphis, but he's a certain type. He's a receiver. He's not a workload guy. So, I mean, if you have a niche player that you need at that position, fine, you'll find them. But if you need a bell cow, you're going to probably have to use a pretty early pick.
Well, Matt, let's keep it with you here as we talk about not the bell cows, but maybe the other cows that come in on third down and eat the grass when the other cow goes and takes a breather. What do you got down the list at running back?
I went pretty deep, and some of these pro days for some of these backs that are going to be late picks are really intriguing to me. But I want to start with one. I mean, your favorite Michigan Wolverines. I think Chris Evans from Michigan is a really intriguing back. And if there's a version of
your favorite Michigan Wolverines based on the number of times
I have picked them a couple times. Well, if I'm torn between Michigan and another team, I'm always going to pick Michigan for you. So when in doubt, he had a great pro day. He was heavily recruited. had a phenomenal 3-cone, which I think is, an important number for running backs, that elusiveness, the ability to kind of slide around, in the open field. If there's a late round running back that has a James Robinson-like rookie season and happens to fall into the right spot, Chris Evans is my vote.
Dale, I'm looking at your down the list picks, and believe it or not, you have left your beloved SEC.
I have, and I've left Division I for that matter as well. I'm going to Tiffin. Nate Washington will be proud. I'm going to Jaquan Hardy out of Tiffin, 5'8", 211 pounds. He rushed for 1,000 yards in 2017. Then he missed the 2018 season with a knee injury, came back in 2019 and rushed for 1,500 yards and with 15 touchdowns. And because it's a Division II school, they didn't play in the fall. So, I think he's a guy that there's some intrigue there. Again, not the biggest guy, but at 5'8", 211, that's pretty well put together. And then he ran in the 4.5s at his pro day. This is a guy that he's a hard-nosed runner. I've watched a little bit of tape of him. There's not a ton out there, but you see the highlights and you're like, okay, I can see this guy being somebody that does something in the NFL. And then I'm going to Duke. I'm going for a smart guy. We assume he's a smart guy. Deion Jackson at a Duke, 5'11", 218, ran a 4.4, 140 at 218 pounds. That's nice. Catches the ball well, had over 2,200 rushing yards in 3 seasons at Duke. So, I think there's something there to work with. At the very least, you got a bigger third down back that can run.
Matt, I was wanted to follow up. You mentioned Kenneth Gainwell a moment ago.
Yeah.
And he intrigues me, the pass catching ability. Last year, there was a receiver coming out of Memphis who lined up in the backfield a lot and carried the ball, Antonio Gibson, who ended up going to the Washington football team and having a really good rookie year as a running back. I've heard a lot of speculation on Gainwell. He might do the Gibson in reverse. He was a running back who lined up at receiver a lot. He might actually be a receiver in the NFL. But no matter what they call you, particularly on third down, if you can be a guy that can excel catching it or running it, it's a big advantage, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I think Gainwell is coming into the league at an absolute perfect time. Highly advanced route runner for the running back position. Elusive, can stick his foot in the ground, run slants, runs wide receiver routes. And you mentioned Gibson, who I like a lot with Washington. Gibson, that's one of the reasons Gibson was not a feature back at Memphis, because Gainwell was kind of ahead of him on the depth chart. So Gibson had to move to the slot and play receiver and whatnot.
And Gainwell actually had about 1,000 yards, give or take, more from scrimmage in 2019 when they played together at Memphis. Yeah. And Gibson looks like a really good pro. Dale, do you agree? We got a little look at that guy last year, but very impressive rookie season.
Yeah, and we talked about this last year at the draft, why Gibson only had like 95 career touches or something like that. Well, it was because of Gainwell. They liked him better. It's kind of the Carter Javonte Williams argument with North Carolina. Like, okay, why didn't one of these guys take the role? Well, they had 2 good ones. And sometimes when you have 2 good ones, you try to work them both into the equation.
And if you want to talk recent history, I mean, that Memphis program, not just Antonio Gibson coming out of there, but Darrell Henderson, 3rd round to the Rams in 2019. Tony Pollard, 4th round to the Cowboys in 2019. Go way back, D'Angelo Williams, 1st round Carolina, 2006. Memphis knows how to produce running backs.
Yeah, the recent history is pretty amazing. I'm glad you mentioned that. I think Gainwell's got a bright future.
A couple other guys that I have in my further review second look. Jarrett Patterson of Buffalo is real small, but when you go for 700 yards in 2 games, I don't care if it's Bowling Green and Kent State. That's a lot of yards. And he's going to have 52 career touchdowns, including 19 in 6 games this year. Is he dynamic enough that, hey, maybe if you're feeling pretty good about most of the rest of your position, to add this guy as the occasional splash player?
Yeah, I mean, I like, the Buffalo program has produced some pretty solid players as well, including Khalil Mack. They've got some stuff going on there. Obviously, the Steelers over the years have felt good about the guys coming out of the MAC conference as well.
You mentioned Khalil Mack. I like Khalil Herbert from Virginia Tech. I mean, he's a shorter, squattier guy that kind of bounces off tackles, ran better than I thought, in the 4.4s. He had to transfer from Kansas. Didn't catch a ton of passes, but you watch him, I think it's just because he wasn't used in that capacity. So maybe he's, falls a round or two more than he would because he's underdeveloped in the passing game.
Last guy I want to hit, and curious what both of you guys think about Chuba Hubbard, Oklahoma State. How are we to perceive a guy who played last year, but his production was about half of what it was the previous year?
I kind of still like him. I mean, he and Elijah Mitchell from Louisiana are similar backs to me, where they're kind of that Shanahan, Raheem Mostert, stick your foot in the ground through a zone scheme and just go, a straight line. They're both really fast. And Hubbard was far more productive a year ago. But this past year was odd in general. So I kind of give him the benefit of the doubt. In my first go round, he was my fifth running back. I don't think he's at that level. I mean, I had him a little overvalued based on tape 2 years ago. But I think in the right scheme, he could be, useful.
That's the thing with the running backs, Mike. I mean, you have to find the guy that fits what you want to do. And what is it that you want to do? Are you a power running team? Are you a zone team? Are you a one cut? What are you looking, for your running backs to do? And so we may see some guys that, that were very productive in college who slide a little bit because there's just not a team there with a need that values that kind of runner. Or you may see some guys who are later round guys that, people think are later round guys that go earlier than expected because they fit the scheme.
Yeah, you don't want to take the guy who runs out of the I formation and put him in a single back set, right? Square pegs and round holes don't often measure up very well. That's going to do it for our 2.0 look at the running back position. Remember, all these videos shared on Steelers.com, the Steelers mobile app, and the Steelers official YouTube page. You can catch the audio on the Triple Take podcast and on Steelers Nation Radio. And you can subscribe to the Triple Take podcast wherever you download your favorite on-demand audio content. Thank you for finding us, however, and wherever you found us, till we crank it up again in advance of the first round on April the 29th. For Matt Williamson and Dale Lolley, I'm Mike Prisuta. You've been listening to the NFL Draft Triple Take presented by UPMC.